like probably a few years ago, like maybe 3 years ago, when you started to organize these green drinks next to the EB's office, and then you started like to do like a grassroots, like just bringing people together, even if it was for networking. And now fast forward, like in a blink of an eye, I look at you and you are everywhere as a voice for defending the role of civil society, of which I am also part, against the backlash that we are seeing from many elements in the European Parliament. And you have your own base, which has grown, I would say, very impressively. And we're very much a fan group here of you, I'm pretty sure. So I guess my question for you, and the reason why also you were also met, is like, how did you do it? What did you learn on the way? Video content for sure. Like, tell us a little bit how you think about, how you approach it, but also overall, how you're able to be such an influential voice. I believe everyone can be an influential voice. So how can we do that? What did you learn, etc.? And now we can hand over to you. You can start your presentation.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you, Sebastian, for the invite. So basically, I have literally, I think, 3 slides. So they're pretty short, and then very much looking forward to having a conversation, because yeah, I would love to chat about this with you. I'll share our learnings on the way, and it might be not exactly what you'd expect, I guess, but let me just let me know when, because I can't see you anymore.
Yep. Yeah, we can see your Canva presentation.
Okay, so I cannot see you guys at all. So if at some moment you can't see, or there's the questions or thought or whatever, feel free to interrupt. But basically, if we move backwards a little bit, so my name is Chloé. I'm an environmental and social justice activist and mobilizer based here in Brussels. And over the last few years, I've worked in different NGOs and different topics, ranging from big tech to lobbying. And I used to have my personal Instagram account, which eventually turned into an awareness raising account about European politics and climate and environmental and social justice. And that was good for a few years. I think I had around 12 to 15,000 followers, and I was very happy with that. And I was mainly using it to share campaigns, encourage people to take part. It was a little bit of everything. And last year, I had the idea of starting a video series about lobbying, because we are in Brussels, and we all know that lobbying is very prevalent here in Brussels. And I sort of wanted to do 2 things. I wanted to highlight these organizations that the general public doesn't necessarily know about, because they do a really good job at having weird acronyms that nobody knows what it stands for, but also because that's the whole purpose, right, of these trade associations and these consultancies, is that they're not necessarily known to the general public. So wanted to highlight that, and wanted to sort of deconstruct what lobbying really means. And so we started doing these videos but with no expectations. So I think that's what I meant when I said maybe it won't necessarily be the outcome that you were expecting. There was no audience mapping. There was no scenario mapping. There was literally just me, a really good friend that does amazing shooting and editing. And we just sort of started on a quest to highlight these organizations. And the way we did it is we started by the ones, we sort of cross data, right? So everything in those videos are super sourced. I just want to flag that. And we sort of cross data on the amount of meetings that they managed to get, the amount of money that they're spending, the amount of full-time equivalent of people they have working for them. And that was all based on numbers in the Transparency Register, media investigation, and NGO reports. And so we started doing these Facecam videos with a very ironic tone from the beginning. So we actually took inspiration from something which is called Juice Media. I can't see you guys, so I don't know if you guys are nodding or not. But basically, Juice Media is an Australian channel that that's sort of ironic videos pretending to be the government, and explaining the hypocrisy of some of the measures that they're taking. So that was sort of the inspiration behind it. Talk about very serious topics, highlight the facts that people will remember, but using an ironic tone instead of having a very serious sort of flat presentation. We wanted to make it as time relevant as possible. It wasn't always the case for the Meet Your Lobbyist series. It wasn't necessarily tied to a specific process, but to some other videos, we always tie it to a media release or an investigation or a scandal. We always shot in front of the relevant locations because it made people feel closer to the organizations that we were talking about. We could have done it in a nice living room with a nice lighting, and a similar background that never changes video after video. But we thought that actually going in front of these places, even if you didn't necessarily see the logo in the background, but just made it feel more real for people. From the beginning, we really wanted to sort of have really sharp, good quality video and sounds, but also really good editing that was super dynamic. So if you've seen the videos, you'll see that sometimes it's shot from very close, sometimes it's shot from a little bit further. There used to be a beginning with music that was always the same. We stopped that for different reasons. And then also in terms of like sort of branding, we have sort of a summer outfit and a winter outfit. And the reason for that is that then these videos became really recognizable for people in their feeds. And so the first few videos did quite well, like pretty good. But then the algorithm really pushed one, which is this one, the number 5, which is about FTI Consulting, a consultancy here in Brussels, but also worldwide. And it started pushing it like crazy. And we weren't really sure why this one, because honestly, it's not even one of my favorite. But it started pushing it like crazy. And basically the numbers that we have now are more than 4 million views across different platforms on all of the Meet Your Lobbyist series. And didn't count the comments, but there's quite a few as well. And it made the account, at least on Instagram, grew from, I think, 15,000 followers to now close to 90,000. In terms of outcomes, it's interesting because some of these lobbies have actually reacted and sent us messages suggesting we go for coffees to discuss how great they are. And we've also received regular messages from people both within, NGOs, media, but also within institutions about the work that we're trying to do with the Your Lobbyist series. So there's also a very strong credibility element because everything is sourced. And while there's an ironic sort of humoristic tone to it, we've never been challenged on the numbers or the reality of what we're saying. And I think that's an important point. I still can't see you guys, so feel free to interrupt if there's a comment or a question.
Which lobbies?
Yeah.
Which lobbies reach out? Which of the lobbies reach out to have a coffee about how great they were?
CEFIC definitely did, the chemical lobby. And then I think we had IOGP as well. So IOGP is the International Association of Oil and Gas Producers. And let me think. And there was definitely a third one as well. And then Business Europe didn't react. Chloé Mikolajczak didn't react. A few others didn't react.
Okay, I think it's nice. At least they, acknowledge you. Still,
it's also interesting because it's even more than reacting. Like we saw that there was sort of a crisis comms meeting for sure, because suddenly on LinkedIn we started getting a bunch of comments, not only from the organization that was in the video, but also all of their members, or most of their members. So suddenly we ended up with like 20 comments from chemical companies representatives saying how great they were. So in terms of sorry?
No, I said thank you for the push. Like people commenting, that is great for reach. So
yeah. Exactly. So in terms of diversification, so the Meet Your Lobbyist series we're continuing doing it, but maybe a little bit less often. But that has allowed us to basically push other types of content. So the video that you see here, which is we called it the Brussels Christmas special, it was about a report about the side jobs of members of the European Parliament. because I'm participating in a campaign about basically side jobs and transparency and accountability for members of the European Parliament. So one of the things that we're doing is the Meet Your Lobbyist series is sort of an entry door, but we're also pushing different content because the ultimate goal is not only to raise awareness about European politics and what's happening, that's great, but we also want to engage people to act. So the purpose of these videos and this account is also to mobilize people, not just raise awareness. And that was always very clear in our mind because this is also what we were doing before. So I didn't put other types of content that we do, but we do sliders also. So like a set of slides, carousel, it's also called, that are working pretty well on a range of different topics. You know, we've done one on what Europe can do, on what's happening in Gaza. We've done this morning, I just published one about the fact that young women are becoming more progressive while young men are becoming more conservative. So yeah, just basically to say that we're using the Meet Your Lobbyist as sort of an entry door for people to find us, because we've noticed that the algorithm really likes these videos, but on the account, we're publishing a bunch of other stuff as well. But it all comes with the same sort of branding. So if it's videos, even if it's not about a Meet Your Lobbyist, it has the same tone, it has the same outfit, the same branding. Some findings. So I say no issue audience, and I know this is not what you're supposed to say to comms professionals because you're always supposed to know your audience before it. But what's interesting, I think, about this video series is that we weren't trying to target a specific audience with this. We didn't do like a plan of it's going to reach people who care a little bit about the EU, but not so much, and we're going to reach men between this age and this age that are in these countries and that usually get content about this and this and this. Absolutely not. We never did that. And so the videos really traveled organically and reached the people that eventually found them interesting. I'm not saying that's what you should do because usually it's better to know your audience, but I think it shows that sometimes it's okay to sort of take a risk and take a leap of faith and believe that the content that you put out is going to find its audience eventually. Not always, but sometimes it works. And I think that's the proof. I think the messenger is really critical. I think the fact that I, in this video specifically, adopt a specific tone. So the content is credible because it's sourced, it's fact-checked, it comes from stuff that you can find online. And there's this tone about it. You can see that we know what we're talking about, but at the same time, we know how to make it interesting. And I think that is the foundation of the trust that then the community that we've created is based on. But it's also interesting because I do think, and I'm being very transparent and honest about this, I do think that the fact that I am a woman with a red beanie in some of these videos that appear quite non-threatening for a lot of people definitely helps with the trust that this community has created with me. So if I would say that if your videos have a similar messenger in all of the videos, you really need to think about who's that person is best for your audience. And it gets to a point where I regularly get messages from people that are like, you're my main source of information. And I regularly have to tell them I should not be your main source of information. You don't know anything about me. Like, please look at other source of information. Just adopt a critical mindset and look at other sources, including professional journalists that do this for a living, because I should not be your main source of information. Create your brand. I think that's what we found. The algorithm really liked the fact that all of the videos started the same, and that there was a little music, and that there was this intro that was always the same, and that the clothes were the same and the tone was the same. Now that we've sort of analyzed a little bit what works and what doesn't work, I think we're able to pinpoint that the fact that we have a brand that is similar in all of these videos really helps. And then find your niche. My biggest, I would say, achievement with this series is to be able to show to the people that say people don't care about European politics, that this is not the case. People do care about European politics. It just has to be communicated in the way that they relate to and that they care about. But yeah, I that's definitely my main pride moments is to show that this community cares, and not only from a place of anger of like we don't think they're doing a good enough job, but more from a place of I want to change the way things are happening, and I still trust that the EU can do better, and I think that's a very important point. And maybe I'll just actually just finish with this, and I'll stop sharing because it's very weird not to see you guys. But I think for me, something that I've always sort of said pretty openly, because I got messages and I got comments from people also that were like, oh, but the EU sucks, you know, it's so bad. Everything you're sharing is so negative. It shows that it's people in the ivory tower that don't know anything about the way real people live. And so that's why for me it was really important to also publish a video, which we've called The Good Lobbyist, to basically say two things. It's that, first of all, it's not just about bad lobbies. Obviously, there's a massive imbalance of powers in lobbying in Brussels, but there's also amazing organizations doing good. And second of all, what I always say about the EU is that the way I perceive my relationship with the EU is the same as if when you have a friend who messes up, you call an intervention, right? You're going to tell them, you're going to sit them around the table and say, this is not going well. You got to stop doing this, 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 and this. You should do this and this and this. And this is how I see my relationship with the EU. I think it's a wonderful project. I think it has so much potential. I think it already has achieved so much. But I do think the way decision-making right now is being made is flawed. I do think there's a massive gap for democratic and citizens' engagement. So I'm trying to do my part by trying to improve it. But I make it very clear that I am not against the EU. I'm not bashing against the EU on a constant basis, which is important to specify, because if you otherwise, people seem to sometimes take my content as all of the EU is bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's pretty much it on my side. These are some of my findings. But if there are any questions, whether it's on technicalities or the way we've been, you know, pushing out our content or how we do the videos, I'd be very happy to hear them. And thank you for your time.
Perfect. Thank you, Chloe. I think at this point I can stop the recording, and so everyone can also safely